Well, good afternoon. Can you hear me clearly? Fantastic. Firstly, a big thank you. I'll just add a disclaimer before I start, which is I usually don't come on stage with a crutch and a brace. I had a sports injury, and a huge thank you to Abhinav, where I'm getting treated in his rehab lab that he's just opened up, which is state of the art. So big thank you for that effort. Let me just start off by saying I am really excited and energized to be here. Fundamentally because it is just amazing to learn about what this school is creating. It's almost historic. The numbers and the statistics reminded me that getting into VidyaGyan is almost as hard as getting into IIT, right? I mean, just look at the ratios. And, kudos to you. Kudos to the alumni. Kudos to the current batch that's graduating. Kudos to the batch that's going to come up. And I think it's a heartfelt feeling of awe and admiration in terms of what you stand for, the rich heritage that you come from, and where you have come all the way together in the last few years, right? I think on behalf of myself and everybody out there, I think you'd need a round of applause just for yourselves for what you've achieved. Secondly, Manvi, thank you so much for that really warm introduction, and congratulations to you. Wellesley is like one of the most amazing liberal arts colleges in the world, and I'm sure you're going to be having an awesome time out there. The introduction was very generous. I don't think I do all of that, but what I thought I'll try and do today is spend some time talking to you about my journey and share with you a few stories. Some of these stories are fun, some of them have learning opportunities, and I think this would be an interesting next 15 to 20 minutes for me if one or two of these stories resonate with you, if they make sense. And hopefully you can take that away as a learning along the way. A disclaimer again, I don't think I'm as experienced or as rich as some of the dignitaries in the audience today, including Mr. Nadar himself being here. I am just 39. So I tend to think of it as I'm just 1% done in my journey. And I'll try and share with you snippets around some of these learnings over the last few years. So I'll start off with the first one, which is probably my biggest learning in life. And it may sound a bit cliched, but I'll try and paint some stories around it. And the first one is around integrity without compromise. And the important part is without compromise. My 10th standard pre-board exams is a story I'll narrate back. I studied ICSE, and in those days we had Maths 1, Maths 2, curriculum. I remember in Maths 1, I completely froze during the pre-board papers, and I had an opportunity wherein one of my friends tried to pass me his whole sheet, and I could have cheated. I wanted to, I won't lie. But I didn't. I just froze. And I got a 0 on 100 on that paper. And luckily for me, Maths 2, I salvaged myself. I got 99.5 and managed to do quite well in ICSE. But that learning there was that integrity has stood for a key learning opportunity. Recently, when I moved from Bangalore to New Delhi about a year ago, I was flying and my wife had given me jewelry to carry in my laptop bag. Now, I don't understand gold or diamonds at all. So I don't even understand the value of it. And I was sitting in the Uber in Bangalore. I removed my laptop and was surfing the internet, got to the airport, got into the plane, and completely forgot that the bag of jewelry or the pouch had slipped below the handrest. And I was amazed. When I landed in Delhi, I didn't even realize it was missing. The Uber driver called me up and said, you've left your jewelry and I picked you up from this address at your residence and I'm going to send it back there. And that to me was a big learning on integrity again, because it was his need was greater than mine. And it was just heartening to see how people across the world have imbibed that story. The third example that I'll give you there is of something that happened to me in Intuit. I was about 27 years old. Intuit is a world-class software company which has given the world Quicken, QuickBooks, TurboTax, and a whole lot of other leading software. And when I joined them when I was 27 here in India, you can say the title was managing director or CEO, but frankly, it was just a title. I was amongst their first few employees, so it really didn't mean anything. And the charter was to try and create local products for the local market. And we launched about 4 products. 2 of them bombed, which is okay for a hit rate for a startup. But 2 of them went on to be fair amount of commercial successes. The one that bombed was a product called Go Connect. And it was a product which was a marketing tool for small businesses in partnership with Nokia. And it was going to go all over the world. Now, it was interesting because Intuit invested about millions, over $20 million creating that software. And in my heart and in my gut, I knew that it was the completely wrong thing to do. Absolutely the wrong thing to do. But I couldn't, with a lot of determination or with a lot of forcefulness, get that idea across. Because when you're in a room with very senior people, including the global CEO and the board, you tend to buckle down because you think that they're wiser than you at times, right? And long story short, we launched the product. It was a complete disaster. Complete disaster. We spent over $20 million on it, and we sold 100 units in India. 100 units, that's it, right? And I remember doing a debrief with the founder of the company, Scott Cook, and saying, hey, Scott, I found it really frustrating that I didn't speak my mind or trust my gut because I just knew Nokia was the wrong partner. And you know what he told me that day? He said, Umang, that's an integrity issue. And it hit me. It was, because I tend to think of myself as someone with high integrity, that's where he brought in the without compromise definition into my learning. And I think the learning there was you got to speak up. Because at times, you may have more information or knowledge than your counterparts in the West or than people who are senior than you. And so not speaking up is an integrity issue, right? And I thought I'll just share that with you as an opening, that has been one learning for me that has helped me really good all through these years. The second one that I thought I'll talk to you about is the power of beliefs and challenging the status quo. And this was a learning that I had during my time at Adobe. And I'll try and illustrate this to you with an example. Adobe at that point of time, about 7 years ago, was a great software company to work with, had a very large development presence in India, and we created Photoshop. Now, I remember when I joined Adobe, my mom and dad were asking me, what will you do there? Because PDF is free. And Photoshop you get for 100 rupees, right? Everybody pirates it. And it's true, because it is the way the world worked with that creative software. Now, interestingly, at that time, when I joined, I tried going out and convincing people to adopt creative solutions and creative software. But no matter what, let's say I went to Roshni and said, hey, Roshni, you should go and buy Photoshop. It's going to help transform the way kids will learn and get educated. She may fall for the idea, but then when I told her it's more than ₹1,00,000 for one software on a CD, she'd throw me out of the door, right? She'd say, Umang, you're smoking grass. And that's true. And that's what most of India was doing. 99% of that software was pirated. So one fine day, the company took this pretty bold decision of challenging the status quo in the software industry, which is we're not going to ship software on a disk. We're going to change the house upside down, and we're going to take a 50,000 rupee or a 1,00,000 rupee product and price it for 499 rupees a month on a subscription. Use it when you want to and reject it when you don't, right? Don't use it when you don't want to. And that was interesting because what happened in the first year is we dropped our profits down by over 70%. We got millions of more users, but profitability fell. And it felt like completely the wrong thing to do. I mean, I remember Wall Street was like dead against what we did there. But here's the interesting magic that happened. Lots of happy customers came in because the software was cheaper. We added free apps, storage in the cloud, a lot of value, right? And over time, in the first year, for example, if 1 million new customers were added, right? Traditionally, just to give you a backdrop, that business wasn't growing. The trade secret in the software industry is when, in a packaged software industry, is when the units don't grow, we just charge more for the same product year on year. by adding a few features, right? And that's what was happening. Growth was down to lower single digits. But suddenly, we added millions of new paying users who renewed in the second year. And in the second year, we added 2 more million users. So over time, what you'll find is there was a stacking effect of the revenue that led to an explosion on the business. And the market cap of the company grew from 8 billion to about 60 billion US in 18 months. And I think that can only happen when an organization, its employees, and a board really believes that you can challenge the status quo and make progress. And that to me was a big learning at that point of time. The third learning that I'll share with you is, as you graduate and you go out, and this is the first of many graduations, you're all headed to brighter futures, to college and, far beyond for your post-graduation, post that. But you will learn new terms. You will learn the Angrezi. You will learn how to walk the talk, right? You will learn ways to articulate, ways to express yourself. You will learn new software. You will learn new tools, right? The learning that I have is no matter how much we learn and we imbibe along the way, at times we as individuals make our entire pitch really, really complex. And I think the single third learning that I'll share with you is simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Complexity is very, very easy. Simplicity is really hard, right? And a recent example of, I saw this very recently, about a few months ago. We were sitting on a board of a VC trying to evaluate 12 of the hottest new startup ideas that were coming out of one particular area in India. And there were 12 startups that entered the room. All were young, first year engineering, up to maybe first year out of college, right? Literally that demographic, really early stage. And these kids came in with these fancy ideas and big PowerPoint. And by the time we'd finished 11, we were pretty disappointed with what we saw. But there came in this 12th set of company, or this new company that had formed. It was 2 kids from NIT Warangal, 1 kid from IIT. And they had 2 slides. And they said, here's the problem we're trying to solve. This is how big the problem is. This is why we're unique. We've already started the business for 6 months. It's profitable. We need your help to scale. Here are the numbers to back it up. It was a 5-minute pitch in 30 minutes of time allocated to them. And it was a no-brainer. Just go give them a term sheet and fund them, right? I mean, that's what eventually happened. So I think that learning around keeping things simple as we go along just is of predominant importance. The other thing that I'll share with you is, while some of these were more tangible in terms of learnings, there's one rather nebulous one, and I'll try and build a point around it. And this is around experiences. And the way I'll frame this is, experiences are goosebumps. Think about the time in your life, whether it was with your wife, your loved one, your family, your boss, your investors, your students, your teachers, or your friends, where you communicated something or you built up an idea and magic happened, right? There was that aha moment of what happened in that room. And when you reflect back, it almost goes down to, on the personal side, Aristotle's theory of communication, right? Which is around balancing communication with ethos, pathos, and logos, which is around your ethical ability to communicate, your ability to empathize, and your ability to, reason with logic. But you will notice that magic happens when you're dealing with people and you can create those magical experiences. Trust me, I try and create them every time at home with my wife, right? Doesn't work. But nonetheless, keep trying, right? I mean, I've known her for 40 years. We met in kindergarten, and that's been a big privilege of just being with her. But the learning that I have is when you extend that to business, it's so true. Think about the world today. Products and services have become mere commodities. What truly distinguishes why you would go to a particular travel company or why you would go to a particular telco is the experience. Maybe a show of hands, right? How many of you in this room absolutely love, and when I say love, absolutely love your insurance company? No one, right? And that's true, because when you think about the insurance company, they just come to you once a year for the premium. They're not creating that experience. And today, when you think about the world of experiences, you think about the power of mobile or what it gives you to build those experiences, there are two powerful terms that I think about in experiences that are important. The first one is continuous, and the second one is being consistent. And I'll give you an example of all of this, right? If I'm a customer of your brand or of your service, I want you to know who I am. I want you to respect our history together. I don't want to be calling a call center number saying press 1 for this and 2 for that and 3 for something else. And that's about being really consistent. And when you think about continuous or consistent, the other example that I'll give you is how digital as a technology has only come halfway. Recently, I was helping a friend buy a car. And he downloaded an app on the phone, which was a very cool configurator where he could choose the car, make the modifications, and he walked into a dealership. Now, these dealerships have become even more fancy. They've got these large screen televisions, and the brochures have kind of moved to becoming coffee table books, right? So he walks in, he says, hey, I want this car. And the salesperson says, let me show you all my models and let's configure it. He's like, no, the model that I have is on my phone. What if I could just swipe it on your screen and you could check it back from inventory to build that experience, right? And make it continuous in the digital world. And I think that's an opportunity for each one of us. So whether you're dealing with people or you're dealing with businesses, if you can create those magical aha moments, that person will be your friend for life, that client will be your customer for life, or that partner would be your partner for life. And I think that is really important in terms of a journey. It's a nebulous concept, but it's really helped me. Two more things that I'll share with you is, especially today for all of you who are graduating, the best way to create your future or the best way to predict your future is to go out there and create it. And there's a very powerful model around innovation that actually works. And I think is, whether I look at any successful human being, any successful company, you can marry this model, and you can actually marry the model of Hinduism to it as well. It's not my model, it's a model which was taught to me by my professor, VidyaGyan, who I think is amongst the top 3 management thinkers in the world. But it's a very powerful way of thinking about life. And what he talks about is, when you think about life and you think about your own journeys, you should think about it in 3 boxes. The first one is really around preservation. It's about running your business, spending 70% of your time, whether it's studying, whether it's focused on your business, and that is going to help you pay the bills, get the revenue, or get the marks to get into a college, right? That's the effort that you need to start doing. But 30% of your time needs to be spent creating your future. Because you gotta keep innovating, because if you don't, you'll stagnate. And so when you think about your role in life, even as a student, while 70% is focused around what you're doing today, you gotta think about that 30% to help you create your future. And in the middle, you gotta selectively destroy things from the past, because what got you here is not gonna get you there, right? And that's a very interesting, powerful concept. Now, let's do a pop quiz. How many of you in the room, show of hands, know your gods and goddesses? Hindu gods and goddesses. Okay, a few hands went up. Okay, so let's do this quiz. So when you think about the god of, you can actually marry the laws of universe to this. And it's pretty interesting. So when you think about the lord of preservation, who's that? Vishnu. There, I got a name there, right? And when you think about Vishnu's wife, who's Vishnu's wife? Lakshmi. So when you think about managing the present, Vishnu gives you the power to manage the present, and Lakshmi rewards you by paying the bills, right? It's true. It's true. I mean, these gods weren't invented for nothing, right? And you can put a management model to it, but it's true. Now think about the future. Who's the god of creation? Brahma. Yeah, I heard that. Who's Brahma's wife? Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge. So Brahma gives you the power to create, and Saraswati gives you the knowledge that's out there. And you got to selectively destroy things from the past. And Shiva, god of power, and Parvati, the goddess of destruction, actually come into play. You think about any example, and you and I can debate this for the next half an hour. Think about inspirational leaders. Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela's life is a textbook of this model. He spent most of his time fighting the apartheid. He was put in jail. And imagine if you were put in jail for as long as he was, or if I was in that position, I'd probably walk out hating the white man because I was, black at that point. Now, he came out, he selectively destroyed his hatred for the white man, embraced it, in fact, and created a new future for South Africa, which is today a vibrant economy. You can go on and on with these examples. Think about Apple. Think about Steve Jobs. Think about Facebook. These examples of this model kind of marry everywhere. The penultimate thought that I'll leave you with is a very hard-hitting moment of my life that made me realize I'm actually a pretty shallow human being. These yardsticks can differ from person to person, but it's a concept around how you would measure your life. And for a lot of you, as you are graduating and passing out, it would be to get into this college and from there to get into this job or to start a company of your own, or to chase that $1 million dream or that dream house or that jet. And these yardsticks of success can differ. I remember being in a room with someone who asked me, and this was that shallow moment. I was with a lot of other people at that time. He asked me, Umang, what's one thing in your life that you are most passionate about? And without blinking an eyelid, I said, my wife and my family, my daughter. They're the love of my life, right? And I said, okay, man. He said, fine, that's awesome. You didn't even think about it. It came naturally. That clearly is the truth. You aren't just saying it to make it sound good. And then he asked me, so on an average, how much time do you spend with them in a week? And I was like, I travel quite a bit. I'm good on weekends. So let's take the average of about 2.5 hours a day, not more, 2 hours a day, 2.5, 3 hours a day. And he then said, okay, that's fine. That's true. How much time do you actually spend with them not looking at a screen? Television, iPad, iPhone, or even a movie hall, which I thought was an outing. And it made me realize, I said, pardon my French here, but almost half the time the TV is on or my daughter's on the iPad or playing a game. So I would bring that down to maybe an hour and a half at the most. And I was beginning to feel very sheepish about this. This is happening publicly. He then said that, okay, in the time that you're not looking at a screen, how much time do you spend with them not discussing logistics? Who's going to pick up the daughter from school? Who's going to pick up the parents from the airport? And my wife and I realized we actually discuss a lot of logistics. So there goes half the time. So we're down to about 45 to 40 minutes at the most. And then he said that of that remaining time that you have left, how much time do you spend with them not giving them a negative stroke, telling them what's not right at home? And the men in the audience may probably relate to it, but I tend to do that a lot. But feedback is a gift. I'm actually giving them feedback to improve. But the funny part was, he said, when you minus that time, I was down to 20 minutes. And now you realize why I was shallow, because he said, Umang, you just said the most important element in your life is your family, and you end up spending 20 minutes a week, quality time with them. And I think in life or in business, strategy, my strategy was, I was not backing my resources to the strategy that I displayed, which was my family. And in business, what I've learned is strategy is not about saying yes. It's about hard choices. It's about saying no, right? Choosing what not to do and backing your strategy with your resources, which in this case, in the personal example, was my time, right? So those are some of the few learnings that I'll share with you. But let me end on this note to just talk about the vibrant ecosystem that we find ourselves in India, right? Think about it. When you think about mobiles, there are more mobile phones in India than toothbrushes. There are more mobile phones in India than toilets. And there are more mobile phones in India than light bulbs. In fact, the very definition of existence of the three most important areas of what you need to exist, whether it's food, clothing, shelter, or roti, kapra, makan, is being transformed to roti, kapra, makan, or mobile, right? Think about it. 1.3 billion Indians, 1.1 billion cell phones, 400 million of which are connected to the internet. And it is predicted that by 2020, this was a IMAI prediction 8 months ago, that 750 million Indians would be connected to the internet, right? And I think that post what we saw yesterday with the free 4G phone coming out, and I'm sure there are going to be other competitive offers like that, that acceleration of connectivity is going to grow up. Now think about it. Imagine an India with 1 billion people connected to the internet. You know, we've done the study at Facebook. Our mission as a company has always been to help make the world more open and connected. And every time you connect the unconnected, 1 out of 4 individuals is lifted out of poverty. Because you give them access. You give them access to financial services, to healthcare, to education, to jobs, to dignity of life. You uplift an entire society. In fact, I would argue that you could uplift an entire nation. And when you students are thinking about this opportunity, don't let your imagination hold you back. Because today all we are is our ideas. And it is so easy. You know, back then, if in the 70s or the 80s you had to start a company, you could, it was hard. It was really hard. Today it doesn't take anything. It's easy. You can start a company in your first year in college. You can build an app. You can solve for a big problem. You just have to look for that big unresolved, unmet problem or unsolved need that you can solve in the most unique way. Think about it. Disruption is happening on the mobile as we speak, right? Whether it's Amazon, whether it's Flipkart, whether it's anyone else. But when you just turn it back to India, just look at the opportunity that India has. No other country has 1 billion people on the internet, or presumably so, hopefully in the next 3 years, right? And in my mind, there are 3 Indias. There is India 1, which is everything that you see here in the top 10 to 12 cities. There are 200 million Indians that live there. The government classifies it as SEC-AB or NCCS-AB urban, right? And these are people who live their lives very similar to anyone anywhere in the world. But then there is India 2. And India 2 is 250 million people who are living in Tier 2, Tier 3, and Tier 4 towns that you have seen that have needs and desires, but they don't have the access or the availability of products. And then there's India 3, which again is a rich heritage that you know best, which is 700 million Indians that are living in the internet. And the next few generations of companies that will come will be those that can disrupt and create unique products and unique services to solve for the unique needs of India 1, India 2, and India 3. And the single biggest, most ubiquitous device to help you solve that is going to be the mobile, right? And that's what the opportunity really is in my perspective. I'll lastly end with, why I'm excited about being here and helping out in our small way into the economy with Facebook. Our mission as a company, as I said, has always been to help make the world more open and connected. And as our role and responsibility in the digital society increases, our focus is now pivoted to helping the world get more closer together by empowering communities. And VidyaGyan is an example of an amazingly vibrant community, right? So I think when you think about the opportunity that you have, consider it a privilege. I am in awe and admiration of how you've come so far and where you'd go, right? And I'll end with this note to just, from my favorite athlete, Abhinav is in the list, he's number 2, but my all-time favorite would be Muhammad Ali. And he said that, life is like a boxing match. Defeat is not declared when you fall, but when you refuse to stand up, right? And I think if you could live your life with that as a learning, magic will happen. So I'll just end it on saying that go out there and create a rocket ship. Create a future for yourself, for your families, for your loved ones, for VidyaGyan, for your city, for your state, for your nation. Make us all proud. We'll be standing on the sidelines cheering your journey. Thank you so much for having me.